Emma.
Yes, Madelyn.
What do you call it when you're throwing your dad off a cliff every day? Throwing your dad off a cliff every way. You could even call it throwing your dad off a cliff overtime.
I don't know. What do you call it?
You're taking care of business. Hello and welcome to Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
I was rolling her eyes. That was a great joke, host Madelyn.
I'm your checking in host, Emma.
Checking and Tekken. This week,
Exactly.
We're talking about Hotel Dusk, Room 215, and Tekken 8.
Yep.
Some numbers in the title is the theme this week.
Is it the dad that gets thrown off the cliff in Tekken?
They're all dads.
They're all dads?
Did you not watch the Brian Cox explainer of the Tekken story?
You know, I didn't actually watch the Brian Cox explainer.
Well, then you would understand that it is a story of 3 generations.
Okay, cool. I understand now.
So look forward to that when we talk about Tekken 8, but that's not where this podcast starts.
I'm very excited for Mountain's lore corner for Tekken 8.
I have not dived so deep into the lore. That's about the extent of the lore. We will talk about how in a different universe, I feel like I could be like a fighting game. I feel like every time we talk about fighting games, I say this. In a different universe,
yeah.
I feel like I could be really into the lore of fighting games.
Yeah. But first, we're talking about Hotel Dusk, Room 215. Which is a Nintendo DS game released in 2007. Initially in North America and then internationally, which is funny to me. Also, supports the Nintendo DS Rumble Pack accessory, in case you were wondering.
You were probably wondering.
Developed by Sing. Had a sequel called Last Window that was not released in North America.
Because they went bankrupt.
I don't think that's why it was not released in North America.
At least one article told me that it was not released in North America because they went bankrupt. It was released in Europe. It just wasn't released in North America.
It was released in Europe. They also made the Another Code games, which was the same deal. The first game was released in North America. The second game was initially only released in Europe, which is why I'm like, I don't know if it's because they went bankrupt. They just stopped releasing games in North America. Maybe because they were going bankrupt. Who knows? Perhaps. Yeah.
Hotel Dusk it's a detective game. It's a point-and-click adventure game, and it's I guess there's not really a way. It's a sideways game.
Yeah. It's a visual novel that you hold like a novel.
Unless you're a weirdo.
I don't think you could play this game holding the DS normally.
But you might be able to hold a novel
like a DS.
Yeah.
I also don't know if that would work.
You could try it. So
long as you're not reading House of Leaves, you hold this like a novel.
It's pretty good. Yeah, so it's unfortunately for everyone being like, oh, it's a cult classic, right? It's a cult classic game like so many DS games. And folks, it's never coming back.
I think actually that there's a good chance they do actually bring it to the Switch. Just based on the fact that they put Another Code in a collection on the Switch this year.
Okay, if the Switch 2 folds, then maybe.
I think they will just find another way to do those puzzles.
You can't tell me the Switch 2 isn't going to be dual screen. It's right there in the name.
I mean, I really hope so, but the rumors are that it's just like a more powerful Switch, which is super boring. But we'll see.
It's going to be right there in the name.
Yeah, sure.
Anyway, you couldn't like port it directly. Not that you know. That's
they got The World Ends With You on there. So
yeah, but I'm sure that took a lot of work. It wasn't like a port. Right? That was a yeah.
Neither is the Another Code release. It's a remake.
Fair enough. But who wants to rotoscope in the year 2024?
We're sort of jumping around on this. Why don't you give us short story summary on this first?
Okay, Hotel Dusk, room 215. In this game, you play as Kyle Hyde. You're a former NYPD detective. You check it into the Hotel Dusk. It's December 28th, 1979, outside of sunny Los Angeles. And now you're a salesman. You're a salesman for a company. And you check into this room that is rumored to grant wishes. Room 215, and the hotel is kind of full of mysteries. And like most New York detectives in games, you're haunted by something that happened on a past case involving your partner, and you're trying to find him.
Yeah. So he's here, I think, both because he got like a strange sales request that asked him to go, and also because he's looking for his partner. Like, you meet all the various different guests that are also staying at the hotel at the same time, who initially appear unrelated, and slowly discover that it is in fact more related than it seems.
They indeed also are all haunted by their pasts.
Yes.
Thought it was funny that one of them has a friend named Alan who's a writer.
All Allens are writers.
It's the truth. I was like, it's part of the, like, maybe Remedy can pick this up and make it part of the Remedy, the Remedy verse.
You know what? I bet they could. It's just got that sort of vibe.
I know, that's what I'm saying. I feel like they could. I feel like they could decide that was Alan Wake.
Yeah.
And I feel like it could fit in just fine. The game has a really distinctive visual look. Which is sort of this, like I mentioned earlier when we were just sort of giving you quick hits on the game. Everyone's animated through rotoscoping, right? Which, if you're not familiar, is when you have real footage and then you trace over it, basically. Yes. Which is not very common in games. And also beyond that, like, also has this sort of very distinctive, hand-drawn, sketchy-looking style.
Yeah.
Apparently all inspired by a-ha's Take On Me music video.
Great.
Because when I think of Take On Me, I think of jaded, sort of depressed ex-NYPD detective at a shady motel in LA.
That's what I think too.
Don't we all?
As we mentioned, to play this game, you hold your DS sideways. So the character models are Kyle's usually on one side of the screen, and then if you're talking to someone else, they're on the other side of the screen, or I guess just the other screen. He's on one screen.
That's right. There's two screens.
The character you're talking to is on the other screen. Additionally, you move around in a 3D environment, so on the touchscreen side, I believe, there's sometimes like a 3D environment that you can move through. Kyle pretty much consistently stays on one side of the screen at all times, and you can see his expression and what he's doing. You can also take your own notes. So sometimes the touchpad turns into your little notepad, and you can take notes with the stylus, and while you do it, Kyle will play a little animation where he's taking notes on the side.
Really ahead of its time. As we
very
all know,
charming.
We live in the you must take notes on the game era.
Yeah. Definitely encouraging you to take notes and try to figure things out, which, to be fair, a lot of DS games did.
Yeah.
Because
it's a little more diegetic here.
Yeah, you can, it's suited for that, right? Because you could, like, write on it, and it wasn't, like, super unnatural. But this one really, like, encourages you, like, he has his notepad, and you should take notes on it, essentially.
Left-handers beware.
Yeah.
Did see a few people griping about that.
They didn't have a left-hand mode?
No.
You could, probably.
Maybe you'd have to mirror all of the stuff, right?
No, you just have to flip it, right?
Well, but, like, the only one screen has touchability, right?
Yeah, but if you turn the DS the other way, the touch screen's on the left side.
This is harder for me to think about than I
like, yes, you would have to flip them.
Yes, but then wouldn't they be facing the wrong way?
No, you flip the image also.
That's what I mean by mirror.
Yes.
Okay, we're saying the same thing. Good. Nice.
But I don't think that would be that much work, honestly.
Okay, fair enough.
I just don't think there was enough thought about that in the DS time.
Yeah, well, they did think about it, and they were like, F those people.
Yeah, that's probably it. Yeah,
they were like, we actually don't want them to play this game.
There's various puzzles that I think are tied to the DS's various different features as well. Both in, like, I think your note-taking can help you solve puzzles. Whereas you can close and reopen the DS sometimes, and that's a puzzle solution. I think even the microphone is used as well. And here's where I say my patented... Man, the DS was so cool.
Remember when we had gadgets?
Remember when we had cool things that were cool?
Those were the days.
Those were the days. Remember when Nintendo made things that were cool?
Remember when we had nunchucks? I feel like you could call the Switch remotes nunchucks still.
They are, I think.
Yeah.
I guess they're Joy-Cons, I guess, technically, right?
Yeah.
Is what they're called, but they work like nunchucks, yeah.
I feel like we should call them that for Switch 2. Let's go back to basics. Get back to our roots here.
Right.
This game got pretty meh reviews at the time, from what I can tell. Or like the kind of reviews that you don't really get anymore. You know what I mean? I read a few at the time that were like, this game is so slow, and it's kind of unfun to play, and like, the quality of life stuff here is awful. But also, these characters are so thoughtfully written, and I'm still thinking about it. That's the kind of review. And look, I guess Sing went bankrupt 3 years after this, so maybe this point doesn't make the point that I want it to. But like, those are the kind of reviews that like end a company now. Like, that's it. That's your last game.
Yeah.
And they made a sequel to this game.
Yeah.
But it's definitely turned into a bit more of a cult classic as all the little freaks like Emma miss the DS.
The freaks.
Everyone's like, wait a minute, games used to have style. Games used to be weird.
Games used to be cool.
Now they suck.
Yeah. This is just a cool game, to be honest.
Yeah, it does feel like the kind of thing where it's like, it would be neat if someone could make this now. It does, like, in reading the reviews, it did seem to me, I was like, oh, like, this is a game that would be cool to play, except that I do see all this stuff that's like, well, if you fail an investigation, you have to go back and listen to the same conversation for, like, 8 minutes, right? And that sounds terrible. Like, that sounds like, that needs to be gotten rid of in any kind of port. There needs to be a better speedy text thing here. But it feels like you could do something like this now, and people would be like, this is neat.
Yeah. But it is, you know, people like to post on, like, Twitter, like, oh, you couldn't make this film today.
Yeah.
And I do feel like, actually, there are some DS games like this that are like, you couldn't make this today, actually. I mean, you could make something like it, but you couldn't make this.
How much do you feel like the book format contributes? Like, that's something I've been trying to grapple with. I'm like, that's neat. It's a neat gimmick. But, like, how much of that is, like, so essential?
I feel like it feels very essential to me. Like, the fact that, you know, you can always see Kyle there, which, like, yeah, you could do with top screen and bottom screen, but it wouldn't quite feel right, you know? I feel like there's something about the more vertical view that feels more like you're sort of in it, too, right?
Yeah.
For, like, the 3D first-person moving around parts,
Yeah.
right? And, of course, there's also the note-taking, which does feel like a very intentional and integral part that just doesn't work as well, right? It feels more like a notebook when you're holding it. You can hold it sort of steadily in one hand, right? And then write.
Now, everyone needs to remember, of course, that Emma has baby gamer hands.
I do.
So there was part of me in listening to this that was like, well, like, a Nintendo Switch is not so different from, like, you know, it's not, the dimensions are not quite right, but in some senses, holding a Nintendo Switch feels more like holding a book than holding a Nintendo DS the way God intended. So, but I do hear you saying, but my weak little shrimpy gamer arms can't support holding the DS in hand, or the Switch in handheld mode while I take notes. And it does feel a little bit more like a detective's notebook at the DS size. So I hear you.
I do wonder if you could do something with, like, turning the Switch around a bit.
Yeah, like still using that kind of... Does it have that ability?
It does have a touchscreen. Yes.
No, I know it has a touchscreen, but does it know... Like, I was like, okay, like, one thing you couldn't emulate on the Switch is the, like, I close the DS to solve the puzzle thing.
Yeah.
Of course, because unlike the Switch 2, which will have folding dual screens. You heard it here first. You can't do that on the Switch. But yeah. I want, does it have, like, enough motion sense that you could, like, do something with, like, I've turned it and it...
Yes, it does have a gyroscope.
Hey, okay. Some gadgets.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously the Joy-Cons have motion sensing.
Right. But of course, those, you really would have to play this. This is another thing, is the docked mode versus handheld mode.
Yeah, I do feel like this is sort of a game that you'd have to play handheld.
If you were going to do anything really cool with it anyway.
Engage with it, yeah.
Like, you could probably port it over to a screen. It just wouldn't. It'd just be different.
Yeah. One of the videos I watched, which unfortunately I did not write down what video I watched, but it was like a 10-minute little retrospective on it, as opposed to like the many hour-long ones there, was saying like, well, you can't hold a Switch like a book, but you can hold it like a Kindle, right? Yeah. And so there's ways that you could bring sort of the book-like feeling to it if you adjusted the game enough.
Not for me.
I believe. Just because you don't use a Kindle.
That's right.
Yeah. But I mean, it still would, the sort of familiar feeling of it, right?
Can we port it to Kindle, do you think?
I don't think the Kindle has any sort of functionality like that.
Dang.
Most Kindles don't even show color, so...
That's fair.
I mean, not that there's too much color. The characters are in, like, pencil style in the rotoscoping, but the backgrounds have color. Like the opening cutscene has color.
Wow, so much for my proposed Kindle port. Was worth a try. There was one reason why, like, Nintendo would have to decide to do this. It seems like they have the rights to this now, if we wanted to do another one. The sequel, by the way, is not entitled as Room 216, which is a disappointment. But The Last Window, The Secret of Cape West. Yeah. Which people seem to think is better. I've seen sort of people being like, this one is better.
Yeah, people really like Last Window.
But do they really like it, or they really like it the way people like Mother 3, you know?
I think it's a little bit different from Mother 3. I mean, because it is translated.
No, I know.
Just for, British people.
You have to, like, import it.
Yeah.
Just saying. I feel like when you have to import a game, your ranking of it goes up by 1 star. No matter what.
Sure. I mean, but I feel like it is a trend that, like, the good games, they don't get released. I'm thinking about, like, Ace Attorney Investigations 2. Yeah. Which is, in fact, one of the best games in that series. And has only just been translated.
You make fun of me for saying, like, dumb trends that aren't trends all the time. Meanwhile, you're over there like, it's a trend that good games don't get released.
It's true, though, right?
What's the Miyamoto quote?
Yeah,
a bad game is
we
released.
Don't release good games.
A good game is never released.
Exactly.
I'm pretty sure what he said. Yeah. So Nintendo has the rights now because Sing does not exist. There was a really lovely, like, Vice article where the person had, like, played this game and they tracked down what the developers worked on, and it wasn't anything particularly mind-blowing or shocking or anything, but it was a nice, like, I liked this game and the company is gone, so let me find these people and see what they worked on. It was sweet, in a way that only works for a game that was only developed by, like, 20 people. It would be really boring to do that with the game now, or really time intensive.
A lot of the team did go on to make a game called Chase Cold Case Investigations at Arc System Works.
Wait. That's not the full title, Emma. There's another subtitle.
Sorry. Yeah, Chase Cold Case Investigations - Distant Memories.
Just an unhinged title.
At Arc System Works. Not received great.
No.
It mostly felt unfinished, it seemed like.
Super short, apparently.
Yeah. Which is a shame.
No, I think you're right to say that these sort of detective-y games, they're not having a capital M moment, but they're having a lowercase m moment.
Yeah. I mean, all of the, Ace Attorney games have been put on the Switch now. They just released, I talked about last week, a new Famicom detective game, which is a very old series, right?
Yes, Famicom.
Like I said, they released the 2 Another Codes in a collection this year. We're liking it.
We like mystery.
We like mystery. Paranorma Site.
Right.
Honestly, Nintendo is just releasing a lot of weird mystery games, which is why I'm like, it doesn't seem out of the question that they would somehow remake this for the Switch.
You're right. It would just not be the same game.
Well, yeah. It would have to be a remake. I would hope they would keep the look.
Yeah, what if it came out as like 3D?
Well, I mean, parts of it are 3D. But ideally, the character models would not be 3D, because I do think it would lose some of its identity that way. But obviously the mechanics would have to be adjusted for however they would work on Switch. Which, I mean, they've done that too, right? Like I said, they put The World Ends With You on Switch.
Yeah, well, that's gotta be because Nomura took a personal meeting to do it.
Took a personal meeting?
He was like, we can bring Kingdom Hearts to Switch if you let me do this.
They didn't really bring Kingdom Hearts to Switch.
I know.
We can cloud in Kingdom Hearts to Switch.
They heard him say cloud, and they were like, oh, great.
Yeah. Cloud.
We love Final Fantasy VII.
That's what's meant by cloud ports.
Yeah, it
features 100% more cloud. But yeah, I think they could do it, and I think that it sort of fits their little obsession right now. Their little side projects that they're releasing from Nintendo.
Honestly, do you think Nintendo, they've done this sort of novelty gift like console things, right? Like old consoles.
Yeah.
Think they'll ever do that in the Nintendo DS?
Maybe.
Feels like you could.
I think we're still years out from that. But
I guess so.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Kyle was in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate as a spirit also.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Do you think that means he'll be in Super Smash Mode Super Deluxe Ultimate or whatever he's working on right now?
I think that would be really funny. Yes. I think that they should add, what is his last name? Kyle whatever.
Kyle Hyde.
Kyle Hyde. Yeah. I think that'd be a really funny one.
Well, I look forward to it. I'm sure that's what that team has been working on.
I think so, yeah.
Well, should we put our fists up?
It's time to put our fists up.
Yeah, it's Tekken 8. 2024 fighting game, duh. From Bandai Namco, released this January. The playtests started back in July 2023 for PlayStation 5, Windows, and Xbox Series X and S. It is the first Tekken game that did not first come out in arcade form.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy.
It's been like 9 years since Tekken 7, so the industry has shifted a bit since.
Yeah. They seemed kind of bummed about it. They talked about it in some of the interviews. They were like, it was nice when we could just release like the fighting part in the arcade and we had some more time to work on everything else while people like played that.
I mean, not that there aren't parts of the world where there's still like, I think South America still has a pretty big arcade culture, but yeah, I can see why they put it on console.
Time marches on.
Yep.
Tekken is sort of like the number 3, the firm number 3 in the big 3 of fighting games.
What's the 1-2 to you?
Well, per everything I read, Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat. It's also like the only hanging on 3D really fighting game of any major significance.
In terms of like camera?
This is what I read.
I'm just asking because, Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter use 3D models, so I assume you mean that the camera moves more?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, you fight in battles. You know what Tekken is.
There's a lot of modes in Tekken 8.
There is.
You could just play the Tekken Ball.
Tekken Beach Volleyball.
Tekken Beach Volleyball mode. And then you wouldn't know it was about fighting. It's just about a fun beach afternoon.
Fun volleyball.
Father and son.
Tekken 8 is mostly about fighting, but it's also about a long-running story about the generational harm and magic powers of the Mishima family.
Yep.
Which Brian Cox of Succession can explain to you in a 5-minute YouTube video. But basically, here's the Madelyn's lore corner, which I know is what you want about Tekken 8. Right?
I do.
That's like what you're here for.
That's what they are. They're here for it.
Okay, so all the Tekken games are ultimately about the Mishima clan. And so there's like 3 generations of Mishima that we care about. There's Heihachi, is the original one.
Mm-hmm. There's
Kazuya, who's the son. Then there's Jin, who's Kazuya's son, who's born in like Tekken 3.
Yeah.
And ultimately, all 3 of these guys have daddy issues. They also are all carriers of the devil gene, which is like a hereditary Mishima family thing that lets them turn basically into a demon form. And so like Kazuya's, the root of Kazuya's hatred for his dad, among other things, or complicated relationship with his dad, is that Heihachi was like, think this guy's got the devil gene, think my boy's got the devil gene, let's throw him off a cliff to find out. And lo and behold, he did, but you kind of don't get over that.
See, it's the son being thrown off the cliff.
But then at the end of Tekken 1, he throws Heihachi off a cliff.
Okay. So it's just that Kazuya likes throwing... Just that Kazuya likes throwing people off cliffs.
I think it might be... Who does it in Tekken 7? Is it Jin or is it Kazuya? I think it's Jin.
I don't know.
Well,
you watched the 5-minute explainer, Madelyn.
Oh my god, he kind of skips Tekken 4 through 7. He's like, and then they continue to battle for world domination. But then one of them throws Heihachi into a volcano, which is more or less off a cliff, at the end of Tekken 7. Assumed dead.
Right.
And much to the chagrin of some subset of Tekken fans, not dead for long.
Well, yeah.
Anyway, Tekken 8 introduces, in addition to plenty of returning characters, various bears, king, etc., introduces new character Reina, who is apparently the most popular character in the game. And we can tell by her fighting style, because she uses the Mishima family fighting style, the Wind God Fist and such, that probably she's an apparent illegitimate child of Heihachi. So now we get a new flavor of daddy issues, namely daughter game.
You're right. They are setting up the daughter game.
Yeah.
Wow. We've had so many father and son games. It's finally time.
Yeah. They were like, everybody's been doing this. It's got to be a daughter game.
It's time for the daughter game.
Yeah.
No, I think the implication is she will be a sort of more villainous character in this.
Yeah.
Series.
She's, a girl with dyed hair. She's a colored hair girl. So we all know how gamers feel about them.
Apparently they love them.
I mean, apparently.
Yay, we love mean girls. Yay!
Yay!
Yay! Yay!
So Tekken has a somewhat more complex, that's not quite the right word, but roll with me. A somewhat more complex like fighting mechanics than your Street Fighter or your Mortal Kombat. It just has like a lot more potential controls and like potential combos. And that has made it a game that is difficult. I mean, like all fighting games in their own ways, it has made it a game that is difficult for newcomers to get into.
But there is a lot in Tekken 8 to allow for new players to get used to things. I think there's a new simplified control scheme in this one. There's a whole tutorial mode that you can go through.
Arcade quest mode.
Yes, arcade quest, where you create a character and go through tournaments and be taught various mechanics of the game. You can, once you finish that, you unlock a mode where you can fight NPC ghosts, so you can practice against certain types of characters, and in doing that also unlock costumes and stuff as well. And there's also ways you can review your game matches, and it will tell you when you made mistakes and allow you to practice those things, which feels very cool to me.
It's super cool. It's also oh my god, this is not a game.
What do you mean this is not a game?
You know what I mean?
It's a sport?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I was you're reviewing the tape. Which is, I was that's really cool. That's a really cool thing. And also, there is no version of myself that I could imagine taking this that seriously. That I'm reviewing my Tekken tape.
Yeah. I mean, it feels sort of fun. I don't know.
No, it does feel sort of fun, but the using it as it's a save state, and I'm gonna practice my split second electric wind god fist multi combo or whatever. I was that couldn't be me.
You can also check out your own ghost, I think, which updates as you put more time into the game, so you can see when you can fight against yourself and be wow, this has picked up some bad habits.
It's got some cool stuff. It's got some cool stuff in there as a game that knows that it's being played competitively at high levels.
Yeah. But also those things are helpful for learning, right? If you want to be someone, even if you want to be okay at the game, right?
Yeah.
It offers various routes that you can practice before going into actual matches with other people.
I guess it's mostly that I can't imagine myself spending so much time with a game over a period of time that I could utilize this. This is no shade to anyone, by the way. This is not a criticism of the game. This is a realization about myself. Yeah. That there's I just don't see a version of myself that could ever be I'm going to play this over enough of a period of time that I'm going to improve.
See, I think, the fact that I personally spent so long on the, I didn't even finish them, but I spent so long on the Kingdom Hearts 3 data fights.
Yeah.
Has, taught me something about myself.
Yeah.
Where I'm maybe I could get really into a fighting game. And that's why I'm never allowed to buy one or play one.
Yeah. Maybe you should. Make us some money, Emma. You're from an allowed country.
Oh, an allowed country?
Did you read about that guy from China?
Which one?
Yeah, that guy from China. That was specific enough. There was a Mortal Kombat tournament in Thailand, maybe, that's sort of a long-running tournament. And a Chinese player got to the top 8 before they were oh, actually players from China aren't allowed to compete in this tournament.
Wow.
And then they threw him out.
Wow.
Which everyone was sort of outraged over. They were that's a weird thing anyway. I mean, it's probably just because there aren't any actual dedicated servers in China, so it's sort of a little bit of a gray area. But how did that guy get all the way to quarterfinals before someone was wait a minute?
I feel there are a lot of fighting game tournaments that are always getting into some trouble. Yeah. Just esports tournaments in general, I guess. I shouldn't just single out fighting games.
You're
right. Fun fact.
Fun fact.
Back when Tekken 7 was the new game, Harada, who is the main guy,
he is Tekken man.
He's the guy. Yeah. Said that one of the most requested guest characters was Kiryu Kazuma.
They will never let him hit a woman.
And also Tifa Lockhart, of course.
She was also like the most requested character for this one.
Yeah.
And he was like, that would be cool. Harada overall is too active on Twitter.
He really is.
For his own good.
He needs to get off Twitter.
He's like, he shares a lot of interesting things like on Twitter and in interviews. Like he's frank in a like game developers from 20 years ago kind of way, which is cool. Like he said, like a stage costs about $350,000 to make, which is like a fascinating little peek at what game developments are. We'll talk about this whole DLC kerfuffle in a minute, and he's been very frank about like why that happened and why he thinks it was badly handled by Bandai in a way that many people don't with the company that's writing their paychecks. But also like he really engaged with people wanting Waffle House as a stage.
Yeah.
There were some good tweets about that. That video of that employee who one hand blocks the chair is so crazy.
I haven't watched that.
You have to find it. Somebody throws a chair, it's like spinning, and the employee behind the Waffle House counter just like puts their hand up and like deflects the chair. Which does feel like something out of a fighting game. There's also a good tweet that like he was like, can you explain to me, Twitter, why you want this? And someone was like, Waffle House is a PvP enabled restaurant. He has also been on the record repeatedly over and over about how much he wants beloved in Japan fast food icon Colonel Sanders,
right,
from Kentucky Fried Chicken, to be in the game. And apparently he went to the head KFC office in Japan and it did not work.
Yeah. Unfortunate, really.
I know, they've made stupid games with him before.
Tekken 8 does have seemingly less customization options. Apparently they've talked before that adding customization is a pain.
Yeah.
But I do think it's fun. I feel like it's mostly Tekken. I see people like making other characters, right, in Tekken with the customization options. Like they pick one character and then sort of like are able to dress them up recognizably as other characters, and that's always fun.
I saw they did it with the whole Baldur's Gate 3 cast.
Yeah.
Ultimately, this man should get off Twitter. He's like, please stop sending me fan art. Please stop asking me questions about game development that you really should be paying me to teach a class about.
Yeah.
Please stop.
Maybe he will finally be driven off Twitter. Elon Musk's work has an unintended positive effect, getting him to touch some grass.
We can only hope. Overall, Tekken 8 has gotten really very good reviews. I mean, honestly, some of like most of the like negatives in reviews are people that are like, well, but like the new Street Fighter was kind of better, basically.
We're in like a very
it's a golden age
of fighting games. Except for Mortal Kombat 1 on the Switch.
Well, what can you do?
Which, you know what, is a golden age in its own way. If you haven't never seen screenshots of Mortal Kombat 1 on the Switch, they're so powerful. But yeah, you know, between Street Fighter, what is it, 6? Street Fighter 6,
yeah,
Mortal Kombat 1, and Tekken 8, the last couple of years have had really great, well-received installments of all the biggest fighting game franchises. Plus, of course, you know, all the 2D ones. Yeah. You know. Grand Blue Rising or whatever. Blaze Blue Cross Tag. I don't know. Blue Cross Play Fighters.
It's that rollback netcode, baby. Game changer. I still know what that is.
I did watch the, whenever we do a fighting game, you should always check out, you know, Maximilian the Dude's review on it. And apparently it's pretty good online. Mostly, like, most Wi-Fi matches are still a bit of, like, a crapshoot over whether it's working or not. which I think is maybe just, that's just kind of how Wi-Fi goes anyway.
Yeah.
But in terms of, I think he was saying, like, in terms of the big 3D ones, it's pretty good. It's pretty up there, but that most of, like Grand Blue and stuff has much better netcode implementation, or whatever it's called.
Netcode. Rollback netcode, Emma.
Yeah.
This game is still a Tekken game, right? Like, you fight people, like, you win fights, right? But they've apparently made some slight kind of balancey changes to how you approach the fighting. It's so weird. Like, I just don't, it's like, I'm so not steeped in this that it's like, oh, that's really interesting that people have that impression of a series of one thing, because I had no idea. Apparently Tekken is historically known as a pretty, like, defensive play style kind of game. You block a lot, you dodge a lot, you look for a tiny opening to do some chip damage, or to, if you're lucky, fit in a fancy combo kind of thing. And this game apparently has made some mechanical changes to incentivize some slightly more aggressive, like, attack-centric play style. There's, like, a recoverable health system for the first time, where you can, like, some of the damage that you take is, like, recoverable if you can get in and takes and score some points, score some damage in a certain amount of time after taking it. And obviously you can only do that by attacking. And then they also have, like, a heat system. That, like, once per match you can kind of, like, supercharge yourself, basically. So I had no idea. I had no idea that Tekken was like, oh, it's a defensive game. Another thing that's, like, this is a sport.
Yeah. I mean, it is, right? The fighting games are sort of have developed into sports. Well, developed. Kind of always were.
They were always set up as sports.
Yeah.
So in the classic, Emma pulls a game out of the hat, and then there's news stories about it that occur since coming out of the hat stuff. So they recently announced a new DLC for this game. Mm-hmm. They had released some DLC this summer. So this game has a battle pass, which people don't love, but it has a character battle pass.
Don't most of the fighting games have? Yeah,
but people don't love it. They don't like paying for stuff.
I know. I just in comparison, I feel like all of them have DLC characters.
And they also did the thing where they rolled out the microtransactions shop, like, after reviews, right? Which, cosmetics, whatever, but so they released their first DLC pack, like, over the summer, I think. And if you had the battle pass, you got the new character, but also her stage came for free, right? But when they released big news, Heihachi, he's back, he's not dead, as a DLC character, which, again, some people had mixed feelings about. They were like, that's kind of a bummer that he's coming back just as DLC. Wouldn't it have been more fun if we'd waited for Tekken 9 and he really got to come back? Right. I won't weigh in on that. I see the merit in that.
I wonder if they just had a lot of Heihachi players who were like, gimme.
Well, I wonder if they needed to make some money.
I guess that too.
But so they brought him back as DLC character, but his stage this time did not come with the character. You have to pay $5 to have access to his fighting stage. And people freaked out. They were like, no, absolutely not. Even though the battle pass, very clear, is not like an all-inclusive pass. Right? It's character pass. So it got review bombed. People, like, freaked out, super crazy. And in the end, I think they ended up giving the stage to people who had the pass and also giving them some in-game currency.
To be fair, I do feel like for a stage...
Okay, but again, remember, Harada says stage costs $350,000.
I know, yeah. But still... Maybe it shouldn't cost that much, Harada.
I mean, yeah, I get it. I'm just, it's interesting, right? It is interesting to think about as always, the expectations around ongoing content that is not free to make. And the need for a game like this to continue to have a way to generate revenue to pay for that expected ongoing development. It's a tricky balance. But you did this. You caused this. Every time we talk about a new game, I feel like it's like, or a big new game like this, it's like, oh, Emma conjured a controversy for it by pulling.
I love doing that, conjuring controversy.
It's kind of.
I'm hoping, I conjure a nice little announcement for Hotel Dusk too.
Yeah,
right? We talked about Lunar. What did I conjure?
Lunar
announcement. Lunar.
You did it.
Coming to the PlayStation.
Yeah.
5. That was me. I did it.
Emma did it.
I made a call.
I have one more funny anecdote before we move to a mashup.
All right.
Which is that sort of near the launch of the game, like last spring, somebody made a bot, a character named Eddie Gordo, which is like capoeira, basically, character.
Mm-hmm.
That bot, they said they did it with like 20 lines of Python. Just spams his like left kick, basically. You press the 3 button to do it, so they called him 3D.
Yeah.
And it did really well. People like couldn't figure out how to fight him. It got to like, I don't really understand how the leaderboards work, but it got to like some kind of relatively high status on the leaderboard, just with like nonstop left kick. Like beating some players that were ranked much higher than the bot.
I wonder if well, I guess it is like unexpected for one thing.
Yeah.
Right. Especially if you're playing it for the first time and you're like, what's happening? But I do wonder if it's coded to be like very precise about how fast it's doing it too, in a way that isn't necessarily as possible for a human. Right.
Yeah.
It's like doing it as fast as it's possible. Spamming it might also cause some difficulties.
That's fair.
But extremely funny, and I'll keep that in mind if I ever pick up Tekken 8.
Seriously. Yeah, the creator was like, I would just turn it on and go to work. And I was really surprised at how well it did. So the robots are coming for us.
They are. They can't write much, but they can kick.
They did have a nice little shout out to AI in one of the interviews with Harada and like the lead like English guy too, where Harada was like, I don't want to use AI for the fun stuff. I want to use AI to like figure out how to fix the netcode and also to convince my board to give me more money.
Yeah. Well, that's a good, I guess.
Yeah. Well, time to mash.
I feel like the family drama of Tekken would actually transfer pretty well to a sort of a visual novel format.
That's sort of a sick idea.
It's like, I honestly think
what a good way for Harada to say some like vaguely sexist things on Twitter about like getting women into the game or something.
Yeah, exactly. I'm giving him some Twitter fodder for some of his bad takes.
Yeah. No, that could be pretty good. Like a understand the lore of Tekken kind of visual novel.
Tekken 8 is also the return of Jin's mother, June, who was he had sort of presumed dead for a long time. So I feel like that could be sort of a good setup. You know? It doesn't have to be these characters literally, but we've got like we don't have to make a Tekken visual novel, but we can take like looking for his mom, ends up having to sort of go back home, right? And then sort of dealing with the dynamics of having extremely evil grandfather and father, and also maybe also being a little bit evil yourself.
Yeah. I think people would like that. Rotoscope fighting game would be kind of sick.
Yeah, like awful though. Like,
I mean, yeah,
awful for the people making it.
Like horrible, just to be clear. But it would be cool.
Yeah, yeah.
I think a literal Tekken visual novel would also go crazy.
Honestly, yeah, I mean, any fighting game, I feel like you could make, like, a serious visual novel out of, because you have very colorful, well-designed characters, right? So you can create, like, dynamic poses for them, right? And usually there's some sort of dramatic story happening in the background, so you just flesh it out, right? Give it more detail.
Have we learned nothing from Arcane?
I know. They should make they closed the part of Riot that was making cool games. Unfortunately, the publishing arm. But they should have made a cool League of Legends visual novel, honestly. And, like, I'm serious ones. I don't mean, like, the April Fools
Not April
ones.
Fools.
Not the stupid April Fools ones that aren't funny.
Yeah. No, it would work. I mean, not to be all... This is going to sound like a dig at games writers. It kind of is. Games writers would eat that stuff up. They would eat that up. They'd be like, wow, I played this and I never thought I'd be into Tekken, but now I'm so invested that I'm playing. Like, think, like, every site.
Yeah. I mean, that's the intention behind, like, making outside projects for your...
Of course.
That's the intention behind, like you said, Arcane, right? Is to get some people playing League of Legends. So...
I'm sure it worked.
Fighting games, you know, don't even have the terrible reputation that League does, really. So it would probably work even better for them.
You could probably use Reyna for this pretty well, too.
Yeah.
Especially if you want to really make it appeal to a different demographic.
Yeah.
Since she's probably part of the family, too.
Yeah.
Maybe I should tweet this at him.
Probably.
No, but then he'd be like, I can't do it. That's his whole no fan art thing, is like, you know, intellectual property.
Yeah.
And I would demand credit. Even though it's your idea, it was your idea, but I would demand credit.
Yeah.
And Colonel Sanders is there.
Yeah. It's a official secret sequel to the awful KFC April Fool's visual novel.
There you go.
Where you date Colonel Sanders.
I can't believe they won't do it. They let Community do that, like, horrible, like, they're in a KFC rocket thing.
I wonder if there's, like, a, how much of a difference there is between, like, KFC Japan and KFC, like, video game companies.
That's true.
You know?
I guess KFC Japan needs to be careful that their, like, Christmas image doesn't get tarnished.
Yeah. I think the Colonel Sanders love over in Japan is so funny.
It's so weird. Especially because we have, like, family KFC trauma.
Yeah.
Like, particularly weird.
All right. That was pretty good. I think it really does suit very well. I think you could take sort of the vibes of both, like, literally Tekken story and also the vibes of Tekken story and make, like, a compelling visual novel out of it.
No, you definitely could. It would have to decenter the King of Iron Fist fighting significantly, I think.
Yeah.
But we could do that.
Yeah.
That's the peril of all of these, like, there are, like, all of these, like, film adaptations of these fighting games, right? And they're terrible because they focus on the fighting too much.
Yeah, exactly.
They gotta focus on the shonen at the heart.
Yeah.
Well, listeners, what do you think? Are you here for Tekken 8.5 visual novel coming soon? Do you wish that we had a game system that we could turn and play in different formations like the Nintendo DS? Have you ever found yourself in, like, a mysterious hotel where it turns out that everyone is connected by incidents that took place in their past? Have you ever thrown somebody off a cliff, related or no? If you have thoughts about this or anything else we talked about this week, hit us up on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Talk This Podcast. You could also hit up Harada on Twitter. That would probably be fun for you, too. He is there. By ad-libbing there, I have thrown off my end of episode cadence, and I have to get it back. Here we go. You can also visit our website, www.talkthispodcast.com, where you can read all about the show, check out the games in the hat, and read our blog featuring long-running series Clickbait Boyfriend and Split Screen. But most importantly, if you enjoyed the show, you ought to subscribe. We're on Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, Pandora Podcasts online and on the app, Overcast, Pocket Casts, wherever you can find podcasts. Subscribe to Talk This.
Fun fact, YouTube podcast was broken last week, so hopefully it will be fixed this week.
Many of our podcasts are on YouTube podcasts.
Yay! It's not just us, because I did look it up and found a whole Reddit thread on it, but it just was not reading RSS feeds.
Oh.
So it was not pulling new
That
episodes from
seems
RSS feeds. So
But what do
hopefully
I
they
know?
fix that by the time I upload this episode. But we'll see.
Fingers crossed. Well, it's my side quest next week. I'll come up. It won't be Halloween themed. Don't worry. But Emma, what are we talking about in 2 weeks?
In 2 weeks, for our old game, we're talking about Kirby's Dream Land.
Nice.
Which we have not talked about Kirby before on the show.
How is that possible? That's crazy.
Because I'm stupid and I forget Kirby exists, I guess. And for our new game, we're going to be talking about V Rising.
Well, look forward to that.
And also, I really, really have to replace the games in the hat.
She's gonna do it. Well, listeners, that's this week's show. See you next week. Emma, we'll not see you. We won't see you next week. You'll hear us next week. Emma, sign us off.
This week, I hope that when you're thrown in a volcano, it awakens your hidden potential.